Wonderful. So good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Today, we're going to be talking about capacity planning and the real deal with capacity planning on power. And joining me today is a colleague of mine. Tom, do you want to introduce yourself for those of you that don't know you?
I will, Ash, and I'm hearing a little bit of distorted voice coming out of your end, and hopefully, are you hearing me okay?
Yes, indeed, loud and clear.
Okay, oh, there you are. You're a lot better. You're back. You're live. All right. Yeah, Tom Huntington, Executive Vice President of Technical Solutions here today, IBM Power Champion, and been talking quite a bit about capacity planning and helping customers out in this space since we acquired MPG back, 2 years ago and a couple of months now. So very happy to be talking that topic and excited to be here with you today, Ash.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tom. So I guess just a little bit about myself. So I've been at HelpSystems in various guises now for just over 15 years. Worked in and around IBM and it's various guises pretty much since day one. And I'm a member of SEAC, so I'm part of the Common Europe Advisory Council. So hopefully today we're going to share with you some knowledge in and around capacity planning on power. So a little bit about the agenda. We're going to start off by talking about capacity planning and really whether it's still relevant in the modern era or whether it's a skill that's dead and buried and no longer needed. But hopefully by the end of the webinar, you'll see why and where it can be useful. We'll then talk to you about how to get started. Maybe you've never done a capacity plan before. Maybe you've not done one for years. I know I've not done a production one for quite a number of years now, but you know, the method hasn't changed. The tools probably have. And then Tom is going to talk us through IBM's Solution Edition program and how you can utilize that really to save money. So this is a slide, an image from the HelpSystems Marketplace survey, which has just recently closed for 2021. So keep an eye out for that early next year when we share the results. Now, 51% of people, so 100 less than 49, say they either have no software, they have limited expertise, or they question the recommendations that they've been provided with regards to capacity planning. And I'm sure many of you used to use Best One some years ago when it was shipped with the OS. So I don't think I've done one probably since Best One. And I think I get this feeling. Myself and Tom talked to lots of customers through technology updates in HelpSystems, and I get the feel it's a bit of a lost art, capacity planning. And I say this because I know at least 2 managed service providers that when they take on customers, they simply double what the customer currently has. And it always makes me think the MSP must have money to burn. They're literally giving away valuable resources. And there are definitely better ways to do this. There's a little bit more science in it than finger in the air. So Tom, we're just going to do, we've got a couple of poll questions today. Do you want to kick off the first?
Let's launch that up and see how do you currently conduct your capacity plans. You can select one of the bottom. You have to choose one. We don't capacity plan. We probably just upgrade. Our business partner does it for us. We use some software out there of some form, which there are alternatives out there. It's a manual process. You figure it out based on maybe past history or best guess, or you're already using Performance Navigator, and it's a tool that you use. And by the way, while we're talking about that, Performance Navigator is used by, IBM themselves. IBM Techline uses Performance Navigator for doing capacity planning. Business partners use it, and of course we use it, and customers use it. So there's a lot of people worldwide that are using that technology. So, all right, what do you think, Ash? Let's see. That's right. I got the poll over here. I'm so used to not doing polls. Let me share the results too. How do you currently conduct capacity plans? 30% don't do capacity plan that are with us today. 10% are using business partners. We use some form of software. It's a manual process, and 20% are current Performance Navigator customers. Well, thank you very much. And any comments on that, Ash?
No, it's interesting. I honestly had no idea what we'd get. As you say, we've I've not done a capacity plan for years, and it does seem to be dropping off. It's nice to hear. It's nice to hear that some people are still doing them and doing them with a bit of science. What do you think?
Well, I think we'll talk about some of the different reasons why in a bit. So let's just save that. We'll save that.
Okay.
A suspense, as they call it.
It's the suspense. So, is it still relevant in the modern era? Bear with me one moment. The mouse has stopped running. So this is another HelpSystems marketplace slide. And in the 15 years I've been at HelpSystems, less than a handful of our customers or clients have actually successfully migrated off the platform. A larger number have definitely attempted to, and then realized it's such a huge job because the machine does far more than they ever imagined, and it's been customized and fine-tuned to their exact requirements over the years. And many of those they've tried, they've gone back, and many of them invested actually in more hardware, in more tin. And I think unless you have an active plan now to migrate off the platform, you'll definitely still be on it in 5 years. An IBM I can continue to run your business, whether it's deemed that you're running legacy applications. But remember, you can also run open source tools, products and solutions as well. So kind of why would you move? It's such a great platform and has such a loyal base. Why would you move? And one of the reasons you may be looking at moving is cloud adoption. Definitely a trend in the market. Normally, people dip their toe into the water with development and test, at least to begin with, but many more are now looking at production workloads. In fact, I've just recently become involved in one that's actually too large for the public cloud providers to house, funnily enough. But as I say, many people start off with development and test. And we only started asking this question in the marketplace survey, I think in 2019, and there's been a 6% shift with people that are just on-prem. It's definitely reducing as and when there's more and more people moving to cloud, not just for but for many more platforms. And I think that's going to continue. Tom, is that what you see over there?
I think so, based on the fact
States?
that we're doing a webinar next week, right, on that topic. So there's going to be more and more people that are interested as people are talking about. I think the difference is technically cloud has been around for many years with the IBM platform, and we have some of the business partners with us today that are been functioning as MSPs. The difference, I think, when people talk about cloud, they're really kind of talking more a platform as a service, where they're really hosted in the cloud, and then somebody's really managing it for them. It might not be the cloud provider, it might be a third party or their own team, and they're really using it as a platform, as a service, where all they're doing is loading their apps up there.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, is capacity planning still relevant? Well, certainly is. As we talked a little bit in our lobby time, there are some businesses that are growing. I mean, you look at hardware stores, lawn care, people that are doing, we're seeing a lot of growth here in building yet in the US. So financial, insurance, those sectors are all pretty strong still, even though there are others that are, like the airlines are extremely tapped out and stressed out here with the current pandemic we're in. But so business is good in some cases, and people need more resources to support organic growth that they've had, or somebody's done an acquisition or a merger, and that's a change for them, or they're getting ready for peak season. We just went through, or we're really in the midst of harvest season in the Midwest here where I'm from, where they're taking grain and corn off the fields. So there's a lot of peak season going on if you're involved in that industry. But then, of course, there are the unexpected growths. Last week I was talking to an account where they were bringing over business because of regulatory reasons. They were now going to be hosting more accounts than they had expected, and they want to plan for that growth. So, in a way, the application didn't change as much as there was an acquisition of business that was coming over. The other side of it too is sometimes we do make application changes, Ash, and all of a sudden we have a problem, right? And performance is going down. So let's continue on. So some other reasons why: costs, of course, server consolidation. This platform, gosh, it's been consolidating since IBM first came out with partitions back in 1999. Can you believe that? 20 years plus of partitions on this platform. And as a direct result of that, the servers have gotten faster, and server consolidation has certainly impacted and has been going on ever since, not quite as much as it was in the past. And then disk, migrating to external disk, SSD technology is certainly another reason people need to do capacity plans, because they are not the same technology. Matter of fact, that's one of the areas where if you're moving to the cloud, you have to be really thoughtful of what the disk configurations might be in the cloud compared to what you have on-prem. So we help people with planning for disk migrations. We've seen some horror stories in that area, Ash. And then, of
Yeah.
course, go ahead. On-prem versus DR, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, obviously, with cloud, you are moving to external disk. I would say probably 100% of the time, whereas many customers are still running internal disk, aren't they?
Right. So it's not about
Change.
capacity and having enough space in the IBM I world. It's about I/O, right, and having enough I/O so that your applications perform for you. You don't all of a sudden have batch processes that go from 30 minutes to 4 hours when you move to the cloud. On-prem HADR initiatives, that's certainly helping people plan for capacity. If you're going to add in Power HA or software replication, what does that look like, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, and what kind of capacities you need there? We certainly can help people figure out what their hourly transaction rates are and what those peaks are, because you really need to plan for the peak, right? You don't ever want to really be behind in replication because the speed of your communication connection. Then, of course, we talked about cloud, whether you're going to run production or high availability. And quite honestly, those should really be flipped. And actually, we should flip a third item on there, Ash, as I look at it, is you should really think development and tests first. Get your, as Ash says, your toes in the water, start out there, then think about high availability, and then production. It's a journey to the cloud in the power business. You don't want to just slam dunk it in there. You're going to have problems potentially.
Yeah, good
So
point,
what else
Tom.
has happened to people out there, Ash?
Well, this came kind of left field, didn't it? Fairly recently. So IBM announced that PM400, as we call it, has been discontinued and withdrawn as of September the 30th. I believe many users of it got a letter in the summer telling them of its impending demise, but I don't think some did. So this has been withdrawn. Many people were reliant on the historical data, not only for problem determination, but also for capacity planning. And without that history, you can't predict the future. And we have an upcoming webinar, Tom. I think it's November the 4th, isn't it?
November the 4th, yes. We'll talk about things that we can do for you that maybe were being done in the performance management, or really PM400. So, and if you don't know what we're talking about, Ash, if you go to the next slide, that'll kind of drive home the point, right? Here's, well, you captured this and added it. So what are we showing here?
Yeah, this is the PM400 agent. So this is where you set and start data collection, and where you first do your first transmission. And for many of you, this was probably kicked off many years ago, and you probably think it's magic that happens in the background. But in essence, your data is being uploaded to IBM Rochester, a server in Rochester, and you can view that historical data, and you can go back many months and many years. You can view it online, you can download it as PDFs and do things with it. So that's all being withdrawn and discontinued.
It is discontinued, right? I mean, it's gone already. And however, though, I think it still works, but I think your data just goes off to never ever land. This was really an IBM services offering. So it's not, it is software, but it was a service. So just so you know that that's what you were paying for. and it was in many different formats. So it's pretty confusing on what customers have. We're hoping that when we talk on November 4th, we can certainly share with you what we can do for you there. And actually, Performance Navigator is so much more modern today. So let's go ahead. Let's jump into Performance Navigator, just show you some things at a high level, what people use this for, capacity planning and performance analysis. So yes, we can provide the weekly, daily, monthly, yearly performance reports that maybe you were getting from PM 400, but then so much more. We can help you with the what ifs, capacity planning. We can help you with the problem determination, where things on your system aren't just right, and you can, because you have the data, you have the flight recorder information with this product, because we consolidate that information so we can then drill into different periods and take a look. What was the before and after? You'll see right in the middle there, before and after analysis. We can do that for you. And then we can also look at library growth and disk growth and IFS growth to show you what's happening in that space too. So lots of great reports that can be automated too. So we can automate those off to a spot where your management team can just drill into it. And the other benefit here, compared to a lot of other technologies, we can show you the whole frame. So if you go on to the next slide, and we talk again about some of the features here, and what's happened with Performance Navigator. We did acquire MPG and their team, which they've been great to work with. Randy might even be hanging out there today, so good to have him with us again as usual. And we've added it into the robot product line, so very strategic for us. It's not going to go away. We have a lot of business partners that are using this. We have a lot of customers that are using this technology. In essence, it's a graphical PC tool. So it's a Windows-based application that runs and does all the reporting, and it's using the collection data from IBM I. It's using NMON data from Unix and Linux servers. So from an IBM I perspective, though, we use it for capacity planning projects, so consolidation projects, going to the cloud. We have the Power Analytics, so we can do the reporting for management. We can do it for the entire enterprise of Power, or we can do it for an individual partition. And as I said, we can do problem determination. So we get called into those. Unfortunately, people don't use the tool, and they go out on their own, and then they make a big leap to some new technology, and they wonder why things aren't performing well. Well, we can do the problem determination, which really it's almost like a non-subjective look at your performance, really, because it's just looking at the data, looking at the details, and it's highlighting where your issue is. Is it I/O? Is it memory, processor? Where's the problem? And even down to what job is causing the problem. So this technology is used by thousands of data centers worldwide. So nothing new.
So yeah, and it uses what I call free data. It uses collection services data. So for those of you who don't know, collection services is data that's turned on. I think it's turned on by default. If you were to buy a new box today, it's turned on. It runs in the background incredibly efficiently. You won't see it. You won't see any spikes. You won't see any real activity. It's built into the core OS. As Tom said, for AX and Linux and VIOS, we use NMON data. Again, incredibly efficient. And not only the collection services data, if you keep lots on your box, it can be kind of resource hungry. It can take up your disk space. Performance Navigator takes that data and condenses it, shrinks it to such a point where you can create just a year's worth is less than 70 meg. It's absolutely negligible. And this free data really should be treated like gold dust, I think, because it can be used for capacity planning. When will I need new hardware, processing power, memory, or disk? It can be used for management reporting. How is my machine performing? Am I getting value for money? What else can be useful? Problem determination. Do I have a problem now, today? When did that problem start? It can also help you plan for what we call peaks and valleys. It helps you identify what your workload really looks like after ironing out the false spikes or anomalies.
And Ash, if you're gonna make a big plan, and most people don't just say, oh, next month we're going to buy new hardware. They usually have 6, 8, year plans. Start collecting the data now, and we have the free collection technology that we can use that can run on your system and consolidate the data without you even actually having to roll out any money, because it's collected, it's stored, it's just waiting for us when it's time to do the capacity plan. And we can do that capacity plan as a service. Or of course, you certainly can, if you're a big enough shop, you probably want the technology for yourself, and then you can just buy it. So there's options to buy a perpetual license, there's option to just subscribe to it. But the important thing is have the data. You have to have that collection data. And Ash, where it's not there, it's because people turned it off because they were running out of disk space. It was causing the disk space problem, right?
Yeah, that's
Instead of
right.
knowing what they were, it's kind of like, oh, it's like turning off the security audit journal. Well, it's just causing a disk space problem. Well, guess what? If you have an issue, you have no flight recorder of what happens security-wise. The same with this with performance.
That's it. And I look at this tool as it's a real techie tool. Techies love to get their kind of hands dirty in it because it's incredibly comprehensive, and you can pull out reports and data for anything that moves on the box, not just the the traditional CPU disk and memory, as I think we're gonna show you as we go forward. So here's just a few guidelines that I discovered, and these are recommended guidelines and thresholds, and it would be interesting to know if you know how close you are to hitting these. Ideally, you should know, really, you should know what your data looks like. You can use these are actually built into the product. These are predefined in Performance Navigator, or if you've got some other values that you prefer, these are kind of recommended guidelines, you can put those into the products. Then when you run your reports in the products, it will indicate whether you're approaching or breaching these particular guidelines. So you can see at a glance whether your internal or external SLAs are close to being hit. So this will come out in the PDF and of course in the recording. So no need to scribble these down too much. But the getting started is all about identifying the peak workloads. Was this spike? Was this peak? Was it a one-off spike caused by somebody running maybe a badly formed query? Or is it a legitimate spike that we really need to cater for? So with Performance Navigator, you can drill into this. You can drill down into this data to see what was happening at that precise moment in time. To think, yep, I know what that was. We don't need to worry about that at all. So it's all about understanding your data and locating what we call a peak period, a legitimate peak period. Performance Navigator allows you to get the detail to understand the data behind the graphs. So once we understand that data, and some of this comes from talking to the business, are extra staff being recruited? Are extra regions being taken on? Will they continue to use applications? Are any new applications likely to hit the eye? What will these applications look like? What's the underlying architecture look like? And you can convert those conversations after talking to the business in these increases and decreases. And you can increase or decrease them over time as well. I'm going to show you how we can increase those over time. A small anecdote here. I once worked for a travel company where a team of developers, for a legitimate reason, decided to migrate the main travel database from a cluster of Windows servers to IBM I, but they didn't involve anybody at all from the IBM I support team in any of the project planning meetings. Slowly but surely, as call center staff were migrated over to the new database, the machine slowly ground to a halt. And it was only after we dug around, we spoke to the developers, that we found out why that was a reason. Now, these kind of things shouldn't come as a surprise. So if you are performing capacity plans, talk to the business, talk to the developers, find out what their plans are for the next year, 18 months, and so on. And here we are, we can project the workload. So whatever we denote the workload is going to grow by, we can project this over X number of months to see what that's going to look like. So what do we see here? Well, this is I guess it's a typical capacity plan for what I call traditional capacity planning, typically for an on-prem solution with built-in headroom, built-in room for growth here. And as you can see, Performance Navigator, hey, it allows us to grow 15% for the next 3 years. That's probably sufficient. But you know, at some stage in the future, if you were to take this box today, you were to buy a box that gave you this headroom, you wouldn't be using this headroom probably till 2 or 3 years down the line when you'd be approaching this line. So in effect, you're buying resource, you're buying horsepower, processor power that you don't need today, but the indications in the business tell you that you're going to need it at some stage in the future. And that changes with what we talk about for cloud, which I'm going to show you shortly. But once you've identified your workload, you know your growth patterns, what Performance Navigator allows you to do is to select a model. And you can select any current or past model in this drop down here and see what your workload will look like on that model. You get a picture for it. You can see how your resources and your workload looks like going forward. Now this differs. This is capacity planning for a cloud scenario. A cloud is completely different because you're paying for what you buy. So you want to use what you buy. You don't need to ensure there's additional headroom because the cloud allows you to flex up and of course down. So when performing a capacity plan for the cloud, you want to be nearing this ceiling, really. You don't want to be right down here at all. You want to be nearing this ceiling. So using very close to what you're paying for. Something else you can do is server consolidation. Tom mentioned this at the start. So Performance Navigator allows you to simulate the merging of workloads from multiple partitions to single partitions, or from multiple servers to a single server. Again, all very relevant exercises for cloud providers looking to bring clients on board, or for customers looking to consolidate power. Also for MSPs looking to host clients. And again, you can simulate growth to understand what will break and when. So Performance Navigator, what are the features? Well, it's the industry standard really for system sizing. Tom mentioned that IBM business partners and users all around the world rely on this, on the trademarked what if functionality that allows you to facilitate server consolidations and hardware upgrade projects based on days, weeks, months, years of historical data stored in your machine. The what if feature allows you to model hypothetical scenarios to determine how capacity changes will impact server performance so that you can make capacity planning decisions with some precision. It's where the magic happens, really, the what if functions. Services. Now, we talked to quite a few customers that are interested in doing capacity plans, but they don't have the appetite to purchase a new product. And really, that's where capacity planning services coming in. It's a viable alternative. But what are the outputs with these services? Well, you get a State of Union report for each LPAR with graphs and commentary around those. We identify peak periods and apply one or more of the what if scenarios. So you can visualize your workloads on different potential new hardware, along with recommendations on processor, memory, disk, etc. You'll also receive as an output a couple of hours where an expert will analyze the output before stepping you through the recommendations, just to make sure you understand them. And these services can be applied to any flavor or mixture of workloads running on Power. Tom, anything to add to those services statements?
And really, Yeah, if you don't have your team members aren't knowledgeable in this space, let us do it. We do as a service. It's not really that expensive when you look at the cost of your hardware and the potential of making mistakes, right? I mean, what that's going to cost you. The other thing I'll throw in here too is that we can do competitive analysis too. For instance, we can take Linux workload on x86 and say, what would you need on power to run that? So helping you if you're considering doing that and bringing the workload over to Power to have a more scalable solution, we certainly could help you there too. But Ash,
Yeah,
looking at our time, we probably only have a few more minutes. So I'm gonna say, let's move on and talk about the Solution Edition program. So if you go to the next slide, Solution Edition program is not something new at HelpSystems. It has been around for well over a decade. We just recently updated it this summer, though, to correspond with the Power 9 technology. We allows IBM to partner with top ISVs like HelpSystems and offer a combination of software and solutions. So if you'll hit the enter key again, you'll see that the S922, the S914, both 4 and 6 core are part of this program. Certainly, we've already helped people with NVMe storage, which performs very well and saves you money. We can help size that already with the Performance Navigator product. And of course, we do bundle in some of our software, and IBM also has some of their discounts and lab services vouchers, et cetera, that are part of this. So if you go to the next slide, we'll actually show you the IBM Solution Edition. So here we'll see the breakdown for the S922 and the S914 4-core and 1-core, kind of a similar program. IBM kicks in some vouchers, unlimited IBM I access, RDI licenses, and down below are the HelpSystems offerings. We have some education to help you out if you got new people, Ops 101, backup and recovery, really nuts and bolts things. One free license of Surveyor 400, kind of a DFU, but GUI version of DFU, if you want to call it that. The IBM free security scan. We'll also do the Performance Navigator Lite software, and then 25% off on any HelpSystems software. Over on the right, very similar offering for the bigger S914 6-core. The difference being is remote training and remote implementation assistance too with the software that you're buying. Down below, to be eligible, you have to be spending $6,500 on the 1 processor or 4-core, and then $2,500 or 25,000 software of HelpSystems on the other servers. But you can use this. You might be refreshing your HA environment. We can use it on Performance Navigator. We can use it for Robot HA. You should know, though, if you're using CBUs, capacity backup units, those are not eligible to use both the ISV Solution Edition and the CBU program on the same server. 3 steps to activate. You just follow these links. Go to our website. We have this all laid out for you. You can register your information right from here. It goes right into the IBM Solution Editions. And we can go to the next slide. There's a feature code for each of these. You can see them there, pretty easy to do. The big thing here to do is that you got to make sure you do this at time of purchase of the hardware within 90 days. You have to also be purchasing the software to combine these offerings and registering your Solution Edition, and then also your lab services vouchers with IBM to redeem these. All right, and then we can just simply launch this page here, and you will be in there for registering for the Solution Edition. It's pretty straightforward, pretty automated. It has to be done by your hardware supplier, though. They're going to have to help you fill out these forms. And then from a help system perspective, on the next slide, really we just want you to remind you that it is part of an offering where you're buying software from an ISV like HelpSystems. Make sure you keep a copy of your invoices. You work with your sales representative, work with your VAR, your independent reseller. We can certainly do a briefing with them too to make sure that they understand what the offering is. So Solution Edition program has been out there for over 10 years now. It's just, more and more people need to take advantage of it. You can save yourself some money on software for sure from HelpSystems.
great. Thank you, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit of sum up on what we've covered in the last 35, 40 minutes. We've had a look, and hopefully you can see that capacity planning is still very relevant, particularly for workloads going to the cloud, for server consolidation, maybe cost reduction, plus for MSP and cloud providers looking to, I guess, properly size customers rather than finger in the air. We've seen how important collection services data is, remember, without your past, it's hard to predict your future. We saw how Performance Navigator allows you to perform capacity planning without the need to be a wizard. It's all graphical, incredibly graphical. And then Tom talked us through solutions editions, and that was great. I learned a lot, actually. I don't know much about solutions editions, so thank you
Well,
for
it is a
that, Tom.
worldwide program too, Ashley. It is good over in your neck of the woods, as they say.
Yeah, no, good to know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then before we
So
wrap up,
yeah, polling question.
yeah,
Let me do my part here. Find my polling questions. Oh, here we go. And yeah, the last polling question is just really more or less about how can HelpSystems help you. I recognize a lot of names out there already. We are working with you, but certainly feel free to click off. You want to learn more about Performance Navigator. You want to see a demo of it. Maybe you want to do a trial of the software. Certainly you can load it up on your system. You want just more information on the services related to Performance Navigator. Understand more about the Solution Edition program. I know we went through that kind of fast. And another thing that we do is, HelpSystems, we're evolving as a company. Since last December, we've done 5 acquisitions, and just sitting down with us, understand what everything is, and where we're at and what some of those offerings might be to help you out in your businesses it's always important. So we like to do technology updates on an annual basis with our customers, our business partners, to share our story and where we're at. So simply click on that. And then we'll leave that out there for a few more minutes. How about some questions, Ash? Do we have any questions?
let's have a little look. Somebody has asked, can you produce all the reports that I get in PM400? I can take that one. The answer is yes. We're validating that at the moment, but pretty sure we can, because both tools use collection services data. So we've got the same raw data. So I would say yes, and a lot more. Pretty confident at
yeah, that's really
that.
what it amounts to. Plus, we can give you a more modern look and feel, and a self-service area for your management team. And it's not just a monthly report. You can look at it any time too. I mean, that's really kind of the benefit.
Got you.
Other
Tom,
questions?
there's one for you, Tom. We'll share them around. Can I schedule reports in Performance Navigator to kind of happen in the background, to run regularly?
Yeah, so as we said, the collection process is free. It just runs on the host. The host code is free. It collects, it consolidates, and then that data is grabbed by the fat client, thick GUI, Windows interface, whatever you want to call it, that you install on your Windows server, and then you would use Task Scheduler to help automate the process of running the reports and putting them off to a HTML format so that you could just have a URL where your team goes to. So you'd need to modify where you're putting the reports, but then they could be auto-generated for you in the background. We do have people that do that. Good question. Probably have time for one more question. I'm going to close out this poll.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
And Vios. Can Vios
What about the
be?
BIOS?
Yeah, can Performance Navigator look at that data, Tom?
Yeah, I think that's, BIOS, if you don't know, is the AIX operating system, and certainly Nmon can be running there. We grab that data, we use that. It's part of the plans. When you look at the enterprise report in Performance Navigator, it has a breakdown of BIOS and IBMI, and certainly we have customers that are running IBMI and AIX and BIOS all in the same systems. So, well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's been great updating you on HelpSystems. If you don't know, for IBMI solutions, we do still help people a lot with backup and recovery. We also have HA. We have the Robot HA product gaining more and more momentum in that space, along with Power HA. We work on that too. Document management, we help a lot of people with document management in this day and age. People are trying to do things paperless. We have the WebDoc solution, which really is geared around IBMI. We can store documents on IBMI, or we can store them off. Cybersecurity all starts with our free security scan to help you understand where your security's at. Monitoring systems, we monitor with Robot, we monitor with Halcyon solutions. Business intelligence, we've been the owners and runners of both SQL and Showcase, and have been helping customers with BI technology. Of course, we talked about capacity planning today, and HelpSystems started with automation. We've been doing automation for over 30 years. Last week I did a webinar on robot schedule for beginners. Great. If you're looking for automation on IBM, take a look at that webinar. Really covers a lot of detail about robot schedule. Well, Ash, I'm sure we got another webinar coming up here shortly, so we should probably leave these people go and thank them for joining us. And if you need anything in security or automation, please come look at HelpSystems. We can help you out, whether it's IBM, Windows, Unix, Linux. We help people in many different areas, many different platforms. Thank you so much. As always, Ash, it's been wonderful working with you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.